All right. So we should be live. Welcome, everyone. So glad you could join us. Uh, as always, we are AppSheetTraining.com, powered by CrewTech. My name is Clark James, and I am joined with the astute Mr. Stefan Quartermont, President and CEO of Crew Technologies. Today is December 3rd. Thank you for joining us. Should be a lot of fun today. Before we get started, I want to talk about some of the things that Crew has to offer for those of you who are looking to make your apps more than what they currently are. We would love to help you with those things. So the first thing is going to be AppSheet IQ. This is a wonderful, wonderful tool on getting you information that you don't already know. It teaches you what things you need to be looking at and what topics you need to review. Very, very helpful. Very, very helpful. And the two next things are brand new. We have implemented an expression library on appsheettraining.com where you can post your snippets, look at other people's snippets, copy them to your Crew Tools extension, and be able to use those in real time in AppSheet. It is a game changer. I've been so excited for this. I cannot tell you how awesome this is. I was told that we're not supposed to go too much time into this. Otherwise, I would talk for about an hour. Uh, but if you don't already have the Crew Tools extension, get it right now. It should be in the description below. It is so wonderful. And I cannot wait to tell you guys more about that uh, at a later time. Or if we have time towards the end of this, we may take some time out and show you guys around. But today's demo, today we just wanted to get to know you guys, get to know some things, some questions that you guys are wanting answered about AppSheet and the things and its functionality. So we're going to be doing some relational data table things, some setting up external app users, as well as going over some formulas that you can use in your Google Sheets. Hi, Paul and Lou. Glad to have you. Um, so, like I said before, relational
Yeah,
data tables
Clark, while you
versus.
have this one up, can I give some explanation on this? Or the
Yeah,
that
go
one,
ahead.
that's the one.
Absolutely.
Yes. So these are some questions that were emailed in. Please send us any questions or any topics you want us to cover. We love making our content really relevant to the experience of app creators. We want to be super helpful for you guys. So these are some questions that were emailed in that we'll spend some time focusing on in this webinar. The first one was, when or how do I use relational data versus having just one big table in my app? This is a question that a lot of new users to AppSheet kind of come to the table with. They may have something in a Google Sheet or a process based around Google Forms or something like that. And so they have data that's in a more flat structure. So they're trying to fit a lot of data points inside of one table. And so it looks like a lot of columns, or maybe repeating certain amounts of data, or having, maybe you have some data validation dropdowns. We'll look at how to take that table, break it apart into multiple data tables that are related to each other, and that will yield some cool functionality in AppSheet that helps you out. We're also going to talk about formula-driven data from Google Sheets. So again, if you are finding AppSheet from Google Sheets, you may have already put together some sort of amazing, super complicated, logic-rich, formula-driven spreadsheet application that's structuring your business process, and you're trying to now convert that into a mobile app or integrate it with your AppSheet app. So how do you do that? What are the drawbacks? What are the caveats? That's going to be more of just a discussion topic. We don't have a whole lot of examples there. And then thirdly, how to not waste your money sharing an app outside your company, knowing that AppSheet makes you pay per user license. You can build a limited amount of apps at no extra cost, but you'll pay for how many people will use that app. So it's a great model for using it inside your organization. But what if you want to share your apps with people outside your organization, maybe your customers, or maybe contractors, or different types of groups that are not part of your day-to-day operating team? We'll talk about how to structure that in a way so that you're not wasting unnecessary license cost in that process. So Clark, if you're good, I will share my screen and we'll dive into the first one. Also, I'm gonna need your permission. There we go. Thank you. Oh, delightful. New computer, have to give Zoom permissions to access my stuff. I'm gonna have to drop out and hop back in. Bear with me, people.
No worries, Steph. Please continue to reach out with comments. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Love to be able to answer any more questions that you guys have. Hopefully, we shouldn't take the whole time to answer these questions. So if you do have them now, feel free to post them in the comments. We'd love to answer those. But while we're waiting on Stefan, I can actually show you guys the new Crew Tools extension. So we'll open up one of my apps that I've just been kind of tinkering with. It doesn't have any real data in it, so I'm not worried about sharing it. But this is the Crew Tools extension. It is free. I forgot to mention that earlier. It's free. Anybody can use it, but it's pretty incredible. So you have a couple tabs at the top. You have docs, snippets, schema, views, and account. This is brand new. As you can see, I'm logged in as myself, and that way I can have access to all of the snippets that I currently own. When you copy a snippet from our expressions library, which looks like this here, then it will auto-populate into your Crew Tools extension. So here's one that Ben has created. Data value falls within current month. I would just hit copy on this and save it. And now it is in my personal snippet library. So you'll see, I might have to refresh. Oh, no, here it is. So this is the one that I just copied and have no experience with. So I'll have to look into how that can be utilized, as well as with docs. So this is going to take you straight to the documentation of AppSheet. So if you are having trouble with a formula, you can click on it here and it'll tell you what that formula does and expressions that use it. I cannot tell you how nice this is. For deep links, these can be kind of confusing sometimes for your others. So we have switch here. If I click on switch, it'll take you directly to the AppSheet documentation, and as well as different expressions that are utilized within this expression. Very, very handy, very, very nice. This is the snippets one, schema. So this is the schema for my current app, for this app here. And so you'll be able to see all your columns. You'll be able to see what types they are. So handy. If you're working in a formula, you can just auto paste column names into your formula, etc. Very, very handy. As well as just copy them to your clipboard with this action here. So now CrewSite inspection got copied. So pretty nice, pretty handy. And then here's all of the views of the current app that you're looking at. Again, same actions here, and it tells you what type of view it is. So you can see we have dashboards, decks, maps, etc. So handy. And then, as I said before, your account, very, very nice. We're really, really proud of this. Stefan and Cameron have spent a lot of time trying to populate this. So it's been pretty sweet. I definitely have been enjoying it. So onto the expressions library. Over here on the side, we have every expression currently utilized by AppSheet. I believe there might be one or two missing, but I cannot tell off the top of my head, but if you click on an expression on the far left, it'll show you all of the expressions that are currently in our expressions library. So this any expression is used 3 times. They are all me, um, but you can click here and it'll show you what the expression is. You can copy this directly into your formula if you prefer that. This is one I went into a lot of detail on, but it's just filtering an expression for a dashboard view, as well as this is my profile. So I can go to here and be able to see all the expressions that I've created, as well as you can go to, let's say I wanted to see Stefan's expressions. I can go to Stefan's. If I think that his expressions are great, I can follow him. And so you'll see now we have 2 followers, me and Ben, and I can look directly at the expressions that he's added to his snippet library. So it's pretty great, pretty nice. They have a filtering that took a lot of hours to encode all of this in here. So I really hope you guys like it. Christmas shopping for wife. Here's a here's a one that CJ created. Um, so this expression selects her printer's board and finds a trendy gift idea that matches the color, acceptable color tones, etc. He's kind of a jokester, but his wife is pretty incredible and amazing. Uh, she is quite exceptional. Um, so yeah. Oh, there's Stefan. Glad we could have you back. Robbins, thank you so much for your comment. We
Hop in.
appreciate it. I was taking them through the expressions library and the snippets and the tools
Nice.
extension. So
Nice. So my technical glitches were not all for naught.
So here's one that's not by crew. This is Taylor M. Thank you so much, Taylor, for posting this. Um, so this is a random base 32 number generator. Pretty sweet. Be able to generate unique IDs or whatever you need it for. It's pretty great. Thanks, Paul and Lou. Thanks for coming in. Stefan, I'll let you take over if you're ready.
I am ready now.
All right, have at
Thank
it,
you,
sir.
everyone, for your patience. Okay. So I based today's demo for our relational data tables off the driver jobs sample apps or sample app. You can find this in AppSheet sample app library by searching driver. I did one small adjustment. I deconstructed it a little bit. So there's 2 tables. There's a jobs table and a customer table. I removed the customer table from the app in the data set. Well, I hid it in the data set. We'll use it a little bit later. But I wanted to kind of explain the process of taking one table that has a lot of components and breaking it apart into multiple tables and what that does for you inside of AppSheet. So let me zoom this in a little bit so everybody can see. I'll do the same here for our sheet. Okay. Right now, if we look at our jobs table, we can click on a job and we see a little bit of information. What's going to change the most is this edit screen. So right now we see a drop down of customers and they're coded a little bit. But this is just text. And I don't really have a good way of once I save or change a record, let's change this job status a little bit. I don't really have a good way to see like how many jobs have I done for this particular customer. I could, copy that and then search for it and find all the jobs I've done for OS Jefferson. But maybe I want something a little more structured, or maybe I want to know more about this customer. If I wanted to know more about the customer, technically I would have to add more fields in here, more columns. So I'd have to say like customer address or customer notes for, maybe special delivery notes for this customer. But that gets a little bit cumbersome, and I would have to add them in every time. How could I always relate it back to when they select a customer from the dropdown to automatically pull in that customer's address and that customer's notes, things like that. So to achieve that effect, looking at this table, we have several components. This is really a job table where they're marking statuses of jobs, completion, and notes, signatures to that job. So this is like really job specific, but there's two columns here that are worth breaking out into other tables. So we have a column for the driver, the person who is executing this job, and we have a column for customer, which is obviously the customer this job is being performed for. We're not going to save space. There's not like extra columns that we could remove by building relationships, but we can have a richer experience and have more data tying back to our driver and our customer if we break them apart relationally. So I will kind of explain this process a little bit. Let's start with customer. I'm going to cheat here and save you guys a little bit of time. There is the table that comes with this is the customer sheet here. And this is information that is relevant to this is my full customer list, okay? And I want to make sure this ties back nicely to this column because I want to know things like the company name and their physical address. So what I would do in AppSheet, now that I've kind of separated this data into two tables, I'll come back in and I will press new table. I'll select the spreadsheet that I want to work with, which is the same one that my job table is in. So makes it nice and easy. I'll allow adds and updates, but no deletes. Don't want people deleting my customer database. Now, what's important when you add another data table is that you have some value between the two tables that you're trying to connect that is identical and that is unique to each row. So if you're not familiar, AppSheet requires that every row have something called a key value. This is a unique value that identifies this row from every other row in the data set. This is like why people have social security numbers so that the government can distinguish each person from another because your first and last name is not necessarily unique. So in the same way, our jobs have IDs and our customers have this little customer code. So this is our unique identifier for each customer because, customer name, there are several good grocers, but there's different locations. So we've made sort of a joined key or concatenated key, GG Jefferson, good grocer on Jefferson Avenue. So I need to make sure that those unique identifiers, that unique column is set as the key, which in this case it is. And AppSheet did this for me, actually. When I connected this data table, AppSheet automatically recognized, hey, the same value is in both of these tables. I see in column D, you have a list of values that matches values that exist in column A of another table. I think this is a reference. And so AppSheet automatically typed it as a reference, but let's assume they didn't. Okay. If I want to connect it manually, I'll click the column settings. I will change the data type to type of reference. This is just a special data type saying the value of this column holds the primary key of another table and it defines the relationship between them. There's some special type details for this column type. the one of most importance is source table. Which table does this column reference? You could pick any table or slice from your application. AppSheet guessed correct and said customer. Most of the time when you're creating new references, AppSheet doesn't guess correct. Maybe it lands on job dispatch or something. You would just move it to the right table and you can save that change. Now AppSheet is going to do something automatically in the background. We notice now our customer column, whenever we see it in the detail view, has a little action button next to it. This action button takes us to the detail view of that particular customer. And it actually has more information than what we put in our spreadsheet. So in the spreadsheet, we have the customer code, we have their company name and their address. But AppSheet also shows me this thing called related job dispatches. This is the column that gets created automatically when you reference two tables together. The table that you specify at the reference point, so the customer table here, will now have a virtual column automatically created where it will show a list of all of the job dispatches which have this customer's ID in the customer column. So basically doing a match between the two tables and saying organic shop appears twice in the job table, and then allows those to be linked together quite nicely. So this is excellent for reporting and doing aggregate statistics on your data over time. We're not going to cover that specifically in this one, but we will take this a step farther so you can see the process again. Now that we have our customers, so let's say, make sure we can add new jobs to this table. When I add a new job, the customer is a drop-down list again, but I can actually add a new reference point right here, a new customer right from that reference column. I can name it. And I'll just say somewhere in Seattle. And then now I can specify my job ID, which normally you want AppSheet to create these automatically. And so, that was creating a job record. Now, if I look back in my data table, I'm going to see a new customer appear when that synchronization finishes. So there we go. Starting to move the syncs through. I now see in row 34, the supermart that I created. So that's a nice dynamic relationship between the tables that allows you to keep your data really clean and organized well. Now, what if we want to achieve the same effect with our driver? Okay, so our job dispatch table has a column called driver, which is currently being hidden, but I'm going to show it and require it and make it editable. It picked up that the column was of type enum, which means a dropdown enumerated list, and it guessed on the values based on values that were available in the data validation I had in the spreadsheet. I limited this earlier to 2, so I would just delete that down if I wanted to make it match well. Let's find the job that we did for Sherman Oaks here. This was driver 1. In my driver column, I could select between the two, but what if I want my user to not be able to pick the driver? Like, it should automatically know who the driver is based on their email. So instead of being this driver column being driver 2 and driver 1, maybe I want to know, match it to email addresses and make it a little more stable. So what I would do is I would create a driver table. And I'm going to have an email for my drivers. I'm going to have a name, and, you know, maybe I'll have a phone number so I can call them easily. And for testing purposes, I want to make sure one of these email addresses is actually mine. So when it shows up in the app as my user, I can see them. This is driver 1. And then we'll have Clark as our other driver.
Thank you for not putting my real phone number.
That's not your real phone number? Dude, who have I been calling all this time? Haha, bad jokes. Okay. So we have a very tiny driver table, and we want to connect it up to this column. Let's bring the table into AppSheet and see if we can get it connected. It doesn't know that I added that new sheet just yet. So I'm going to just refresh my editor and see if it picks up that new sheet. There we go. I have my driver table. And again, let's just do read only for this table. We don't want our drivers modifying their information just yet. Okay. I'm going to make a quick view for our drivers. It's a good icon for a driver. Don't like that one. This one will work for me. Okay, let's see what AppSheet thought about my driver table. I'm going to go to the data menu and the columns tab, open up my driver column settings, and it guessed that the email was the key, which I would actually like to use this as the key. It's more secure. It's almost impossible for emails to be the same, two people to have the same email address. So it works as a really good stable key for a user table. There's an added benefit that you get to take advantage of, which is the user email formula in AppSheet, which automatically pulls in the user email of whoever's currently logged into the app. And you can use that in your formulas to maybe set an initial value or track which user is doing what on a record update. So we're going to use that same function here. Actually, I want to make this a phone type. That way we get a nice action button next to our phone number, but it'll appear after I save. It already went ahead and tried to relate the job dispatches to my driver column. So let's see what happened when it did that. Let's see if it worked. Maybe I'll go in here to all jobs. I'll pick up the Sherman Oaks one, and it says the driver is driver 1 with a hazard icon. Okay, I didn't put that hazard icon there. AppSheet did, and what that hazard icon is indicating is that, hey, there's a value in this column that doesn't match any keys in the related table. So you only see that on columns that are of type of reference and should be pointing to records in another data table. And you only see it when the key in this column, so the value, which is driver 1, doesn't exist in your related table. Now, I happen to know that driver 1 does exist in this table. So why is AppSheet giving me this little exclamation mark? The reason is this column in the driver table, name, that holds the value driver1 is not marked as the key. So when AppSheet's looking at references, it's trying to match what's in the reference column here, driver, to the key column in the other table. So it's taking the value right here, driver1, and it's searching my driver table in this column looking for driver1. If it doesn't find it, it's going to give me that exclamation point. If I want to fix that, I have one of two options. I can change what is the key in my driver table. So if I change it to name, it works. But this doesn't solve the problem of when I create a new job, I want it to automatically select my driver. So I'd have to write an expression that searches for the value of driver1 based on my email address, and then return driver1, which is a slightly more complex expression than I want. Okay, I would rather this put an email address instead of driver1 in the column. So I'm going to move my key back to email. I'm going to save it. And so instead, what I'm going to do, which is a better practice, usually what you have for your dropdowns is not what I would consider, or what AppSheet would consider, a stable key. Okay, this is something that is always going to be unique and very well identifies your data. Maybe the name of our driver would change over time or something like that. We want this to be replaced in this table with their email address instead of their driver name. So there's a wide variety of ways to do that. You could do the old-fashioned Control or Command F, hit the ellipsis, and do find and replace. So maybe for driver1, I want to replace it with this email address. And I only want to do this sheet. So that worked out nice there. But what if you have a lot of data and you need to do something that's a little more scalable than just find and replace, because you want it to automatically search the other table? You may have hundreds of different drivers, and to do find and replace would take you a long time and be very frustrating. And you know there's a faster way to do it. So what I would do is I would break this data apart a little bit. I'm going to remove the data validations. And I'm going to use the Vlookup formula. In order for it to work, I need to have this name column in the first position and my email in the second. I'm just going to do this really quickly. I'm not going to update my column structure in the app yet, because I'm going to revert a lot of these changes once I get my values switched. So I'm going to use the Vlookup spreadsheet expression. I'm going to take this key and I'm going to search a range. I want to search the driver table, A and B column, and then the index value of which one I want to return. So it should always match the first index. And then this is the index of the value I want to return from the row that matches. So I want to return the second index, which is column B. And there we go, pulling in Clark's email address. And so I could quickly drag that down. Why this is not showing, I'm not sure. I'm going to go ahead and remove this validation and see if it's causing issues. how about I revert my Control F business that I did and bring driver 1 back. There we go. Okay, so now I have email addresses in place of drivers, but I don't want to carry this formula across to my AppSheet app, so I'm just going to copy it. Command-C, Control-C, whichever works for you, Mac or Windows. And I'm going to highlight this whole column, and I'm going to paste values only. So my formula doesn't come over and break like the VLOOKUP. It's just a static value now. And I'll delete this column. I'll go back to my driver. I will rearrange my order. And now I will refresh AppSheet. And now hopefully my all jobs has disappeared. That's because I bet there's a security filter on this table. Yes. I'm going to remove this for demo purposes. All right, now I see my jobs. And now there's no more exclamation point next to my driver. It matches perfectly fine. And when I add another one, I'm tired of this job ID showing up like that. I'm going to put an initial value there. Actually, I like that base 32 expression that Taylor had. Let's go to appsheettraining.com. Expressions. And Taylor M. Awesome. I'm going to take this expression and I'm going to copy it into the initial value here. Do a quick test. Okay, so it's going to come back with a value like this. And to make it match a little bit of the ID structure I've got going on here, I'm just going to add on the front job dash, and then I'll use the ampersand to concatenate it with the other things here. I'll save it. And I'll add a new job. There we go. Now I still have to pick the driver. I want this to automatically select me, driver 1, okay? I'm going to push this thing through so that you can see, even though it said driver 1 in the column, wherever that went, Sherman Oaks, this guy, it says driver 1, but in the spreadsheet, we'll look down, it has info@appsheettraining.com in the column value. That's because this is the key value and our column is set to reference, and the key column of the driver table is an email. It's in the app, it's saying driver 2 or driver 1, then my name value, because I have the label set to name. If I change the label to email, it shows my email address. I could change it if I wanted to the phone number. So anytime it's referenced, it'll show the label instead of the key, even though the key is what is in the data. Okay. For clarity, I'm just going to set the key and the label to the same thing right now. And now I want this to automatically populate my user and reference it correctly to my driver row, my specific row in the driver table. So I'm going to set an initial value because I only want this to set when the record's created. I don't want it to always reset on every edit. That's what an app formula would do. So I'm going to put this expression in the initial value position. And the expression is the user email expression, which you can read more about in the docs if you want to. This will return the email address of the current user when they're logged into the app. Okay, so now when I add a new job, there I am, automatically showing up as info@appsheettraining.com. If I want to test if it's working right, I can change my preview app as value to Clark. And this is going to run the app as if Clark is the user logged in. Now it puts Clark's driver in there, which is going to match to his profile. So let's give him a job with our SS supermarket. It's blocked. There's big issues. Sad mustache thing. Okay, now if I look at Clark's driver 2, I see he's got a bunch of related job dispatches. There's 19 of them. I can't see them all in the inline view. So I'll press view all. And I'm going to go down here and find this guy that's blocked. That's one I just created. So connecting quite nicely. All right. So that's a little bit about connecting or building relational data tables from one flat data table. You have to properly identify your keys. You have to create another table for the data point or data object, the thing that should be related. So the customer, I've created a more detailed data schema for my customer and for my driver. And then make sure you mark the key columns correctly. And then make sure those key column values are what exist in your reference columns in the other table. Well, looks like there's some conditional formatting here. Get this out of here. There we go. So again, this is the primary key for the job table. And these are reference columns containing primary keys from other tables, my customer and my driver. And then once those are connected in your app, use a reference column to bring those together. All right. So to touch quickly on the other questions, what to do when I want to bring users that are outside of my app into, or as the users outside of my company, I want to bring them into my app and use functionality inside my app. Let's take this job dispatch app as an example. Maybe these drivers are all remote contractors. So they're not technically employed by my company, and I've got lots of them. I don't just have 2, I have 200. And this is the only app that I want to, that I have built. Maybe I'm doing dispatching through another AppSheet app, or through the same app. I'm tracking everybody's data, things like that. But I don't want to pay for 200 user licenses because maybe I can't afford it. It just doesn't make business sense for that type of distribution. But I still want them to be able to put data back into my app. So you have a couple of options. Option number 1, if you don't need your app to be secure, so they don't need to log in, then what you can do is use the Publisher Pro AppSheet account. The Publisher Pro AppSheet account allows you to deploy to pay per app instead of per user. And you pay $50 a month for that application, and you can distribute it to an unlimited number of end users. Okay, but the caveat is they can't log in. So the data can't be secure. You're not going to use security filters and other things like that. So most of the time that doesn't work for people because they need to know who's using their app, or they need to have them log in some way. So if that's the case, either they do need to log in, or there's secure data somehow, secure things they don't need access to. Your options are, one, just pay up. So you're going to pay for the user licenses for your particular AppSheet per user plan, or think about a Google form as the front end for them. So maybe that part of the app is just a Google form. You lose a little bit of the dynamic relational database control and some other cool features like mapping and things like that that are inside of your AppSheet app. But if you absolutely can't afford to pay for those extra licenses, then you can have a Google form that is the front end for a large number of users, and that will drop into a data table or into a Google Sheet that you can add as a data source into your main application. So you can still use the data they submit in your AppSheet apps, and they don't have to pay for access. That's just kind of a way around that. So hopefully that helps point you guys in a little bit of a better direction. Maybe there's a third-party app. So that would be option number 3 in here, is you have a third-party app that you connect to your Google Sheet data or your AppSheet app via Zapier or something like that. So moving data through APIs into your data source for your AppSheet app so that you can continue to use that and power your business process. And you're using that third-party application to distribute to your wide variety of external end users. All right, on to our other community question, which was, what if I have a lot of formulas in Google Sheets and I connect the app to it? So let's take a look here at this application. What if this whole table was coming from another app? So I'm going to create a table here called external jobs. And you know what? I'm going to make it a pivot table. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'm going to go to tool data, pivot table, existing sheet. I'm going to move to a new sheet. There we go. And I'm going to rename this from pivot table 1 to job report. So a lot of times these formula driven tables are going to be pivoted or aggregated reporting type data. Let me define some rows here. Maybe I want to know customers, column would be job status, and the value would be the count of what jobs are in what job status. And maybe I want to exclude blank customers. And then I want to add another value. Total number of jobs. Oops, not there. I wanted to add that as a column. Nope, I'm floundering here. Nope, not working for me. Okay, not going to worry about it. We're just going to live with this grand total of items and their statuses. Let's bring this into our AppSheet app. Going to refresh. You can bring these reporting tables in. So AppSheet has suggested add a table for job report. And it's going to add it, but it's going to recognize some interesting things. It says, hey, this is either inaccessible or empty. Maybe I'll try to run it as read-only. Table job report must specify a schema. Okay, so it is having trouble reading this pivot table. So maybe pivot tables you can't bring in. Sorry, everybody. Not an option. Can I make this static? Let's come in here, add a new table. Call this customers. Unique columns from here. And count the number of values that this time appears in this column. I'm gonna drag that down. Don't know if I did that right. There we go. Okay, so how many times this customer appears in the table? We'll call this job count. So this table is totally formula driven right now. Let's see if AppSheet will accept it. Oh, need to refresh. There we go. I have report 2. So because this is a formula driven table, I've marked it read only. Usually AppSheet will do this automatically. And what that means is people using the app can't edit this table, but they can visualize the data. So maybe I want to create a graph here. And I want to do a column series. And I want to run this on my report table. Whoops, row series. Maybe not, maybe histogram. There we go, customers. And I want to do the sum of the job count per my customers. So you can visualize, excuse me, you can visualize the data, but you'll notice one of the nuances is when you bring it in and you look at one of the columns, I'm going to expand the view here so we can see in the auto compute section, AppSheet makes this formula, this column appear called spreadsheet formula. And it basically has a conversion of what expression you have in your cell formula. So that means if I did try to add to this table, create a new row or something like that, it would apply this spreadsheet formula back into the new row that it creates. So right now this cell, B31, has nothing in it. If I was trying to add more records to this, it would carry my spreadsheet formula across. So this might be good, what you're looking for. It might be bad for what you're looking for. Now, the downside of using spreadsheet formulas is that when your app is offline, they will not calculate. So let's see here. If I open up ads on my report table, and I will need to create a view for this. Well, doesn't seem to even want to let me. How about I make them editable? Because they're formula driven, AppSheet forces them to be not editable. So again, another slight downside, but usually my recommendation is if you have to use formulas, you have to play within the bounds of what AppSheet allows you to do, which is really, it'll be more difficult to update, add, or be interactive with that table data. But if you don't need to specifically use spreadsheet formulas, you can try to bring the same functionality of those spreadsheet formulas into your AppSheet app. So if I wanted to know this information that I was achieving with COUNTIF on my customers and doing a report of unique customers and then counting how many jobs there are, I could do the same thing with my normal non-formula driven customer table with a virtual column. So I'll create a column called count of jobs. And I want to count how many related jobs are exist in the other table. So I already have a list of jobs that are related, to this customer. And so I just want to count how many items are in that list. Very similar to what I did with the COUNTIF expression on the spreadsheet. So I'll just count the values of that column, or the values, the number of items in that list. And now that I've got that column added, I'm going to, for my customer detail, I'm going to throw the customer company name up top, and then I'm going to throw the job count of jobs right underneath it. So now I see for Good Grocer, I've got 2 jobs. AppSheet also shows it to me quickly here. All right, so that was a long way to tell you to answer that question, but hopefully it helped. We are just over time, so I'm going to hand it back to Clark to close us out.
All right. Here. Make sure this is working. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Sorry for any questions that we didn't get to answer in the comments, but we will review those and be able to answer those for you at a later time. If you wish not to wait for a later time, feel free to email me. My email is here. And if there's anything that you guys want to know about that is very specific or general, whatever you need, we're looking for more fun and interesting topics that we can provide for you guys. We want to be able to be very specific to y'all's needs. So feel free to email me with any questions you have, and we'll try to structure our webinars at a later date for those specific topics. Again, earlier I did talk about AppSheet IQ, Expression Library, and the Crew Tools Chrome extension. I'm telling you guys, these 3 things are game changers, and they're all free to use. All 3 of these things are free to use for you. In order to use the expression library and save things to your snippets, you are going to want to make an account with AppSheet, totally free, or appsheet.com, excuse me. Totally free, but it will allow you to store those into the cloud and be able to access them at any time while you're online. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope that it was very informational, informative, and we can't wait to see you guys again next week. Y'all have a great rest of your day.